Whenever I scroll through travel feeds these days, Ho Chi Minh City is always there. It's vibrant, the food is incredible, and honestly, for a long time it was incredibly affordable to just drop in, rent a sleek apartment with a pool, and live like a local for a few weeks. It felt like the ultimate digital nomad hack.
It really did. It was the Saigon dream for a lot of people. You get the privacy of a condo, the amenities of a hotel, and the price tag of a hostel. But, and this is a massive but, that golden era of unregulated, easy-breezy short-term rentals is hitting a very hard wall. If you're planning to land in HCMC today and just pick up a key card from a random mailbox, you might be walking into a legal minefield.
That's exactly what we need to unpack today, because I've been hearing stories not just about fines, but about people actually getting evicted in the middle of their vacation. It seems like the city isn't just frowning on this anymore. They are actively cracking down. So, what changed? Why is the government suddenly tightening the screws on what seemed like a booming industry?
Well, to understand the crackdown, you have to look at it from the perspective of the people who actually live there permanently. Imagine you buy an apartment in a high-end residential building. You want security, quiet, and a sense of community. Suddenly, your building turns into a revolving door of tourists. Strangers in the elevator every day, noise at 2 a.m., gym equipment constantly occupied. It stops feeling like a home and starts feeling like a hotel lobby.
That makes sense. It's the classic gentrification clash, right? The friction between the permanent resident and the transient visitor.
Exactly. And since early 2025, the Ho Chi Minh City administration decided enough was enough. They introduced strict regulations that effectively prohibit short-term rentals in a vast number of residential buildings. The core idea is to protect the living environment for residents. They aren't just trying to make money harder to earn for landlords, they are trying to preserve the social fabric of these neighborhoods.
So, this isn't just a suggestion or a guideline, it's a ban.
In many cases, yes. Specifically for those day-by-day or weekly rentals that transform a private home into a lodging facility without any of the oversight a hotel has. And the consequences are real. We aren't just talking about a slap on the wrist.
Let's dig into that. Say I'm a foreigner, I just landed, I booked a place on a popular app, and I have no idea about these laws. What is the worst-case scenario?
The worst case is you come back from a day of exploring and find you can't get back in. Forced eviction is on the table. The building management, backed by local authorities, can shut down the operation. You could be asked to vacate immediately. On top of that, there are monetary fines. And for the really serious cases, you could face blacklisting.
Blacklisting? You mean being banned from renting in certain buildings or areas?
Potentially, yes. Or having a record with immigration authorities that complicates your stay. It creates a level of disruption that ruins a trip. Imagine trying to find a new hotel at 10 p.m. with all your luggage because your luxury apartment was actually an illegal operation.
That is a nightmare scenario. But surely not every apartment is illegal. There has to be a way to do this right. If I'm a listener planning a trip, how do I distinguish between a legitimate rental and a trap?
You have to become an investigator. You can't just trust the photos. Before you book, you need to have a very direct conversation with the host. You need to ask, is this apartment legally authorized for short-term leasing? Because here's the catch. Some buildings do allow it, but they are specific mixed-use developments or serviced apartments with proper licenses.
So if the host is vague or says something like, just tell the security guard you're my cousin visiting, that's a red flag?
That is a massive red flag. That is the hallmark of an unauthorized rental. If you have to sneak in, you have no legal protection. You want to see official documentation or at least a written confirmation that the building management allows short-term guests. If they can't provide that, move on.
It's interesting you mentioned protection, because when you stay in a hotel, you assume certain things. Fire alarms work, there's an emergency exit, the lock on the door is secure. With these informal rentals, are we compromising on safety too?
100%. That's the other side of the government's concern. Many of these apartments don't meet the fire safety standards required for lodging businesses. When a building is designed as a private residence, the safety protocols are different from a hotel that houses hundreds of transient guests. If you stay in an underground rental, you're often bypassing those safety checks. You don't know if the smoke detector works. You don't know if the emergency plan is up to date.
That's a sobering thought. It's not just about getting fined, it's about physically being safe. Now, there's another piece of bureaucracy that catches people off guard in Vietnam, and that's the police registration. I remember hearing that every foreigner has to be registered. But does that apply to a 3-day stay?
It applies to everyone. Vietnamese immigration law is very clear. Foreign nationals must register their temporary residence with the local police within 24 hours of arrival.
Within 24 hours? That's tight.
It is. In a legitimate hotel, the receptionist scans your passport and does it for you instantly. You don't even notice it happens. But in a private rental, if your landlord is operating illegally, they might not want to register you because that alerts the police that they have a paying guest.
Ah, I see. So if the landlord says, don't worry about the police registration, they aren't doing you a favor. They are covering their tracks.
Precisely. And guess who gets in trouble if the police do a random check? You do. You can be fined for failing to declare your residence. So if a host refuses to help you register or claims it's unnecessary, that is your cue to leave. A legitimate landlord will usually handle this for you or guide you through the process because they have nothing to hide.
It really sounds like the era of flying under the radar is over. But is the city offering any alternatives? Or are they just trying to push everyone back into hotels?
They aren't trying to kill the industry, they are trying to professionalize it. They are working on pilot programs right now. The idea is to create a framework where short-term rentals can exist, but under strict conditions.
What would that look like?
Well, they are looking at things like capping the percentage of units in a building that can be used for rentals. So maybe only 10% or 20% of a condo can be Airbnb-style units. They are also looking at mandatory fire safety upgrades and strict guest registration protocols. It's about finding a middle ground where tourism can flourish without destroying the quality of life for residents.
That seems like a much more sustainable model. It treats the rental market as a business, which it is, rather than a hobby.
Exactly. Until those frameworks are fully implemented, though, we are in a transition period. And transition periods are risky. That's why if you are planning to stay for more than a month, say 30 days or more, the advice is to just get a formal long-term lease.
Right? Because long-term leases are standard.
Yes, they are legally recognized, the contracts are clearer, and you have rights as a tenant. The gray area really only exists in that short-term 1 to 29-day window. If you're staying long-term, you're a resident, not a transient guest, and the law protects you.
I want to zoom out a bit. We've talked about laws and safety, but there's a social aspect here too. You mentioned earlier about respecting the community. I feel like a lot of travellers don't realise that their holiday vibe can be really disruptive to someone else's Tuesday night.
It's the invisible cost of tourism. When you are on vacation, you are in a different mental state. You're loud, you're coming home late, you're excited. But the person next door has a baby trying to sleep, or they have a 6 a.m. shift. When you choose to stay in a residential building, you are entering a social contract. You aren't just a customer, you are a temporary neighbor.
I love that phrasing, a temporary neighbour. It shifts the responsibility. It's not just about following rules to avoid a fine, it's about not being a nuisance.
Precisely. And honestly, if you can't abide by the quiet hours or the community rules, you should be in a hotel. Hotels are designed for noise and traffic. Residential buildings are sanctuaries. The friction we are seeing in HCMC is a direct result of people forgetting that distinction.
So to recap for our listeners who are currently packing their bags for Vietnam, the checklist seems to be verify the building allows rentals, ensure the landlord registers you with the police, check for safety standards, and perhaps most importantly, read the room. Be a respectful neighbour.
That's the toolkit. And I would add one more thing, flexibility. Because these pilot programs are still under development, the rules can shift. What is true today might be stricter tomorrow. Rely on official sources, government websites, reputable real estate agencies. Don't rely on a forum post from 3 years ago.
That is excellent advice. The internet never forgets, but it rarely updates.
Laughs. Exactly. The law is moving faster than the blog posts.
It's fascinating to watch a city like Ho Chi Minh City grow up in this way. It feels like it's moving from a Wild West phase into a mature global metropolis. There are growing pains, sure, but ultimately it should lead to a better experience for everyone, locals and visitors.
I agree. A regulated market is a safer market. It might be a little more expensive and it might require a bit more paperwork, but the trade-off is knowing that when you close your door at night, you are safe, you are legal, and you aren't going to be kicked out the next morning. That peace of mind is worth a lot.
Absolutely. It allows you to actually enjoy the city rather than worrying about the knock on the door.
And HCMC is a city meant to be enjoyed. It's too chaotic and beautiful to spend your time worrying about eviction notices.
Well said. So, for everyone listening, do your homework before you book. A little bit of due diligence goes a long way in ensuring your Vietnamese adventure stays an adventure in the good sense, not a legal drama.
Stay safe, stay legal, and respect the neighbors.
Thanks for breaking this down with us today. It's a complex topic, but I think we've cleared up the fog. To our listeners, safe travels, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Goodbye, everyone.